Welcome back to Frictionless Commerce. This is the show for digital leaders who are serious about focusing on what's next in wholesale distribution. How do you build a strategy that actually works? How do you create alignment from the corporate suite all the way down to the warehouse floor? That's what we're going to talk about. And our guest today, Adriana McLane, she is answering those exact questions. And she's the founder of Fulfilling Strategy, where she helps distribution leaders design and, here's the thing, most importantly, execute business strategy that delivers field level results. She's here to talk about why this time is different in the history of distribution and how to build a strategy that thrives in the real world. Adriana, thank you for joining Frictionless Commerce. Great to have you.
Well, Matt, I am really excited to be here. We are talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that is strategy for my favorite segment, and that's distribution. So I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Me too. This is going to be a great conversation. I want to start by digging into your background a little bit. Some of the folks might be listening into this or watching this on YouTube may not have heard of you before. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then most importantly, as this question is, what still gets you out of bed in the morning? What excites you about working in this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for the first 25 years of my career, I was not focused on distribution. I had several roles. Most of my focus was in marketing and business development and mergers and acquisitions with public companies, big brands. And it's very interesting because I do think back to my time at Rubbermaid. I was working for Rubbermaid on the consumer side, and then I went to the commercial side. And so we were in commercial food service, and my customers were food service distributors. And I can tell you, having now for the last 5 years of my career focused on distribution, I completely undervalued and really underestimated the value that distribution had in making my brand successful. So it's just really kind of interesting now that for the last 5 years, I've worked exclusively with distribution. And I just love it because they're the unsung heroes. Their value proposition is on the line every single day. So I think they really need strong strategy. And so that's why I'm just really happy to be in this space. I hadn't planned the last 5 years to only focus on distribution, but I did. And then now that's who I serve. And so I think what gets me out of bed every day is, even though the threat of technology and so the uncertainty is out there, I think for distributors, particularly mid-sized distribution, which is kind of my sweet spot, and even small distributors, I think this is an opportunity for them. It's no longer, I think, about who's bigger, but who's faster. So I think that's really, really exciting in terms of what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. I think about too is, when I think about even building out my own like go to market strategy, which kind of distributors are right fit, it's not about size anymore. It's
Mhm.
about digital maturity. And I think, when you think about the opportunity there, that's one of the things that gets me out of bed too, is the exciting possibility of mid-market, smaller distributors being able to leapfrog competitors with the right brand, with the
Yes.
right process, with the right technology. It's more possible today than it ever was, right?
It is. And in my background, I work for, at one point in time, one of the biggest companies in the world and most admired brand. And I can tell you the pace of getting things done in that sort of an organization versus a small to mid-size, say distributor, it's huge. I mean, that's why I'm so excited, because not only is there opportunity, distributors get stuff done. They will do it. They will get it done. So I think that's what makes it so exciting. It's not just the possibility, but the fact that they will actually get it done, which is exciting, not just talk about it or create a gazillion PowerPoints about it.
Absolutely. I got to ask you this at the onset because we're going to dive deep in this, but I'm calling this episode the digital tipping point, right? And the subtitle is why this time is different in distribution. right? Because, like I said at the beginning, there has been talk about digital transformation as long as I've been working as a professional. And so I think there can be like a hardening almost or a closing of the ears to distributor leaders when they hear hear people like us talking about this. So I think the most important question to ask at the onset and to get your thoughts on this is, why is this time different? What is different about today's climate for distribution than maybe it was 5, 10 years ago?
No, and I think it's an excellent question because, distributors have heard that. They've heard it repeatedly. And, at some point it's kind of, well, this too shall pass. And this will not pass. And why is that different? So there's a few things that have happened. I think the first and probably most important reason is the barrier to entry for leveraging this technology that we're talking about here, like agentic AI, the type of technology available today. The cost barrier has been removed. It is
Mhm.
not the same type of investment that before might have been, started with a Fastenal or, that level. It is actually accessible, and it can democratize and make it so much more, just actionable. Does that make sense, Matt?
100% it does. It was just at a conference where Zach Cass, if you've never, I don't know if you've ever heard of Zach
I do.
Cass.
No, I've heard him speak. Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
okay, you've heard it speak. So I don't know if you heard him talk about the democratization of technology, and especially when it comes to AI, right? Like, so AI, the cost of AI has gone to almost nothing. So it's basically free now, right? And when you think about that, I think to your point, this is the biggest gap, right? When there were on-premise massive software solutions that distributors depended on. These things cost a fortune, and they required an army of engineers and technical people to keep it up.
Yes. Very technical. Yes. Very good point.
So that's kind of gone, right? Because now we have cloud-based SaaS applications. We have the ability to connect all our technology together. We can layer on AI for practically nothing. And this is an opportunity, right?
It is an opportunity, and this is where I think it's so great because smaller, mid-size, the barriers are down and you can act on it quickly. But then that's also a challenge on the flip side because now your competitors for technology are not just the big, Grangers and, it is going to be your competitor across the street. It's available to them. And I will tell you, Matt, I see this in just my business and my small business and the way that I use it. And I'm a part of an organization called the AI Playbook. And it's basically a membership that helps small businesses like mine leverage AI. And if you could see the things that these smaller organizations are doing, I get the Sam Altman's prediction of a 10-person, $100 million business.
Mm.
I'm seeing it through what they're doing. So, yeah, so I think that's the biggest factor is that just first of all, the democratization and availability of it. Secondly, the customers are changing, right? The consumerization, if you will, of B2B customers. And I see this with my clients when we do customer panels, they'll say, well, with Amazon, I can do this, or with, I can ask this. And they're making those comparisons. There's that, we know that for territory managers, it's harder and harder to get in front of a customer. The decisions are made before they even get there. So that has happened, right? And that's not going back. So I think that's another big reason. And then I just think the private equity, if you look at the activity in private equity, of course, like HVAC, electric, but I'll tell you the one that really drove this home for me, and I just want to mention it, is QXO and Brad Jacobs, because he's a year ago, whenever he rebranded a business, QXO, and it was $100 million market cap. And 1 year later, it's 13 billion. And he's just taking building material distributors, consolidating them, and his whole playbook is on display. I mean, he was a headliner at NAW's Innovation Summit, and his playbook is using technology for dynamic pricing, automated transportation, just really minimizing the cost on the back end to end, like order to cash automation so that people, the human side of things, can be focused on driving the top line and driving customer service. And that's his playbook. And so that's, a threat. And that really like hit me like, oh, wow, but again, it's an opportunity too, because there's no reason that anyone listening here cannot do that as well.
It's scary because I think that you have these private equity groups, and a lot of times the investors are coming from like a technology background, or they're coming from other industries that have, you know, are light years past where distribution is, right? And they see the opportunity, which is why we're seeing this smart people with money going,
Yeah.
hey, there's a hell of a lot of fat I can cut out of this distribution business and make a lot of money. And I think, if I am a, privately held distribution company, I am, I'm thinking, boy, like, I don't know if I can compete with, you know, what they're bringing to the table. And so 100% like, it's exciting from one perspective, like just as, we think about where these PEs can actually start driving like real innovation at scale. That's one thing, like, that's kind of exciting, especially for manufacturers. But, if you are a mid-market, a small to mid-market distributor, you've got some serious existential questions to answer, don't you?
I think you do, and I think it's, strategically a great opportunity, but what you have to get out of is the old mindset that what you'll hear sometimes is, "Well, okay, that'll work for certain industry, certain segments, but my business is a relationship business, so I'm insulated, it's a relationship business." And what I would argue is, of course, and it is a relationship business until it's not. And if your competitor can use data, can use all this technology to know more about your customer and how to serve your customer better, that's a wide gap that you're asking a sales rep to try to cover, So I say have the best of both worlds, right? Let's,
Mhm.
how can we use technology? This is what I do with my clients. How can we use technology to help us be more efficient so we can be more human and be more available in a human way 24/7?
I love that. I love that. It's exactly what we need, right? Because I think it's harder now. When I think about a distributor's customer base, I mean, not only are they dealing with different levels of complexity from a procurement perspective, or the difference between contractor customers and OEMs, and just the complexity there. But then you've got all of these generational, employees, and so you've got to be able to somehow walk the line between a 64 or 5-year old who's still in the purchasing department, and the relationship that you have to have with them versus a Gen Zer who is scared to death to answer a phone call, right? Like, there's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
massive
That's the string.
the gap, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so there are a lot of cultural things that I think are happening here, just, exactly what you talked about. I also think that technology can be a solution for a lot of it because right now labor is a challenge. You have institutional tribal knowledge walking out the door in droves in terms of
Mm.
your CSRs, your reps. And so you're going to have a solution for that. You can't afford to have an onboarding process where a territory manager takes a year and a half to become productive. It's like, no, you got to have systems and ways to deal with the labor situation. So I think technology can be a solution for that, to help solve that, because I know it's something that a lot of distributors struggle with.
Yeah, exactly. So we've kind of talked about we talked about some of the shifts that we're seeing, and sort of pressure points that leadership teams are talking about right now. And so let's just say that we don't have to do any more convincing. Okay, we get it. We need to do something. Let's green light some digital transformation. It's one thing to sit in a boardroom and go, all right, we need to work on our data. We need to work on our e-commerce experience. Right now, these are two areas that are very weak for us. And we know that if we're going to cater to these millennial and Gen Z buyers, we need to make sure that the product data is Amazon quality, the experience, et cetera. So let's just say we're all in. We get it. We've drank the Kool-Aid. What next, right? Like, where do these digital transformation projects, where do they go to die?
Yeah, so I think the failure is starting where you just talked about starting. I think the failure is in starting with, okay, we know we need to do a digital transformation. We know we need income. We know we need this. I would say you gotta back the truck up a little bit
Mm,
first, because again, what I find is that the leadership teams are not being strategic enough about it. And the first thing that I think is really important is we're assuming they've bought into that, AI is important, but I don't think they have. I think we have to start with really making sure they understand that it's not just about productivity in a tool. It's going to be a completely different way of doing business. And as
right.
such, I think it's going to fail if you start out with your strategy just being tactical. And I think that's what happens a lot. They'll start an AI, they'll do like a pilot. I'm going to do a pilot here. Well, yeah, you're testing, you're doing a little pilot. It's like death by 1,000 pilots. What you got to do is step back and make sure that the leadership team, the strategy team really understands what we're talking about when we say a transformation. Because we're not just, because I think what happens, I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on a rip here, but this is, I think, very, very important. I think what happens is the leadership looks at ChatGPT, they look at LLMs, right? And they see the limitations of that. Or they see a CRM that is enhanced by AI, or they see an order automation system, a tool. And so they're like, okay, which one of these do we need to do? And what I'm suggesting is you take a step back and you say, wait a second, no, don't think of it that way. Think of it this way. Think about what if your ERP and your CRM and your PIM and your SharePoint and your Teams and all your call logs, every single thing you use in your business is connected, right? What if all those things are connected? And what if you had available to you AI agents that could be specialized in doing certain things, that could access all of those things, right? And could talk to other AI agents and act on your behalf, right? And interact with humans. I think it's just very important I think you're going to fail from the beginning if you're looking very tactically at what we need to do versus stepping back and saying, what is possible? I think these leadership teams first have to understand in this moment what is possible. Because what's possible in this moment is the floor. Like it's only going to get right. And then I think you got to go back to your strategy and say, first of all, okay, with all of this being possible, right? What does this do to our value proposition? Does it threaten it? I think you have to start there. And
Mhm.
then how can we leverage it, right? So I think the first thing is just kind of working with a company like Pivot Tree or someone who can help them understand what is possible. Because I do feel that inside distribution, it can be kind of insular and not looking outside of just what's around you. And I think that's really the first step. So I know I said a lot and we can get more detailed, but that's just really important to me. I think what is possible is not understood.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. I think the in some ways we would want leadership to have a bent toward action. And unfortunately, I think what you were saying is that fortunately that means, hey, let's pull a trigger on a new software. And like you said, back up. We need to actually ask ourselves, what is the mission and vision of this business? Right? What is that value proposition? What do we stand by? Like what promise are we making to our customers and to the market? And then sitting in a room, this may take days, this may take weeks, but locking department heads in a room, let's map out how we do business today. Who are our customers? What does it look like? Right? Quote to cash, the entire process. And let's imagine, like you said, imagine a world where data is accurate, where it's accessible, systems are connected, AI agents are real, what's possible, right? And then I think you'll start to realize like, oh my gosh, like, okay, this is where we want to go. What's the
Yes.
first step to get there,
Yeah.
right?
And there is a first step, right? Because you gotta envision what's possible. Then it's like, okay, well, what do I do next, right? But I think in order to come up with a good plan, you need to start with a good understanding, or you're gonna end up just chasing the latest best CRM, the latest best, this or that. And you're gonna see 70% of your projects are not gonna give you a return. So I think it's first of all just educating yourself. This is not an IT play. This is like
Mhm.
a strategy play. Everyone, right, needs to understand what is possible. Then, based on that, we can say, all right, so where are our biggest bottlenecks, right? Where are we touching our customers? Where are our customers experiencing the most pain? What is the thing we do uniquely well? And then how can we, working with partners who can help them decide, what type of tool. But how can we do that better? And I think you start with that. And instead of doing like a pilot on a, we're going to go automate this little thing over here. It needs to be something very meaningful to the business. And then you need to look at the whole process and say, what do we need to do to the whole process? That's the only way you're going to experience kind of the big transformation in terms of, where to start. But I always like to start with where are you touching the customer? Where is the greatest value, right? And where do you have the biggest bottlenecks in serving your customer?
Exactly. It's kind of like you go to the grocery store and you walk down the cereal aisle and you're frozen with decision fatigue. And I think we can feel this today, right? I think distributor leaders can sense that, well, yes, e-commerce is crappy. We need to fix this. Well, yes, our customer service teams don't have the right systems. Well, yes, we need a new CRM. So it's like identifying where to start is so important. And a big part of that is working with like an expert like yourself who's not in the weeds of the business. And by the way, doesn't have, political departmental pressures, right? That they're kind
Or a
of
tech expertise. Like I'm agnostic to all the things because I'm not a tech person.
right, right, right. And you're not going to, so it's like, I'm not pushing any agendas. You're strictly looking at, and by the way, this is why we call it frictionless commerce. You're looking at the highest point of friction in the
Yes,
business. And when I say friction, a lot of people don't understand what I'm saying. I'm saying, where is the most manual effort happening that could be automated using connected systems and better data. So if you've identified where the biggest point of friction is, maybe tackle that first, right?
yeah,
And then you're going to get the biggest return on the investment. And it's sort of like a snowball effect. Like you get a win and then you do something else, you get another win. Next thing you know, you've actually turned your culture into a
exactly.
culture of digital transformation, right? Because now you've built up that muscle, that digital transformation muscle. Do you see that happening in leadership teams where culture is starting to change?
Yeah, not fast enough, though, I would say. I think yes, I mean, I think the fastest way, it's very trying to change culture is trying to boil the ocean. It's very hard to do it quickly, and universally in an organization. But if you can do it through kind of sub teams and, projects that are like we're talking about here, where people see it, then it's the proof is there. And then it's, well, I want to be part of that, right? So I think that's how you do it is by a meaningful process, like something meaningful to the business, make that work. And then exactly it builds, it's like it's your proof of concept at that point.
This concept of moving from the design of a project at the top level to one that thrives all the way on the warehouse floor. And I think we're touching on this a little bit here, right? Like it's like sort of what I'm hearing you say is like the visibility of this of the business outcomes of the project is clearly communicated and and is celebrated across the departments all the way down to the people that are picking the orders in the back of the house. I think this is what culture change looks like, right? It looks like leadership going, hey, our mission was this. This is how we stand apart from our competition. We did this small project in order to achieve that mission. And here's how we did it. And here were the results. And here's how that impacts you. And celebrate the wins, the micro wins. And then hopefully that leads to, more and more of that sort of things.
It makes the change real because you're observing it, experiencing it, and being a part of it through a meaningful project, right? So something that's meaningful. So if you start with what is most important to your business, and then that means that most people are going to be touching it in some way or another. And then through that, that's the fastest way, in my opinion, to see the benefits of changing culture, learning new skills is through a project like that everyone's involved in at some level.
Awesome. And what I wanted to go back to a little bit more was this idea of how AI is going to fundamentally change the way a distributor's operations are today, right? So we're talking about, a lot of people talk about, oh man, AI is going to replace a lot of jobs. And distribution's like main value proposition is the relational side of the business. What is that going to look like? So can you kind of like join me in a little bit of let's jump in our time machine and go in the future and imagine what this could look like? How do we adopt AI, remove the friction out of the sales and purchasing process, but not lose our identity as relationship companies? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do we tiptoe that line?
Yeah. So it's interesting. So I think it's a great question because it's one thing, it's what you don't want to do is lose your identity, to lose that personal touch. In fact, I would offer that the goal should be to be able to elevate it, to increase it, and to strengthen it if we do it right. And I think the idea is understanding that the goal is to shift tasks that are like that can be repeated, that are less non-value add, right? If we can shift those and offload those to a system, then that should free up time for people to be more involved in doing, like for instance, a customer service rep. If you're able to remove them, having to key in orders that come in through email because you're able to automate that process, right? Then that's going to free them up to reaching out to the customer to, ask them how they're doing, do they need other things, what all's going on? How can we help you? They can answer the phone call. They can actually pick up the phone and answer it the first time. You could even have a 24/7 if you wanted, right? Ability to do it. So I think it's just in shifting what they're doing. But I will tell you, Matt, the thing that does concern me is the idea of like upskilling, right? That okay, well, we'll just then take people who and some roles will reduce. Like if you're able to automate a lot of things, you may have had 10 people do it. Now you only need 2, right? Well, those other 8 people may or may not be a good fit for the type of work that you need them to do. And so
Mhm.
I do think that's something that we have to be very honest about, and that your HR people, the leadership level, you're really going to need to look at the realities of the shifting work and what that's going to mean for your team so that you can be prepared for it. I don't think that's an easy solution, but it is going to be there. I think it's something that there's this people side to change management that is just really, really important. And I think more important now than ever.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there are some industries when we think about like just how technology has fundamentally changed the way that we do things, right? Like when we think about like different industries that used to be very manual, like intensive manual work required to bring products to market. When we learned how to automate those things and we applied new technology to those things, whether that was, railroads, or airplanes, or whether it's robotics inside a manufacturing business. When we've done that, we've driven the cost down, quality of life improves. So cost goes down, quality of life goes up. There are certain roles in distribution and manufacturing which will become obsolete. Like when I think about order entry work, like no human being wants to sit on an ERP green screen and enter 200 lines of industrial parts. Nobody wants to do that. No human being, graduates high school and says, I think I'll work at an
Right.
industrial distributor and like key things into a system that I've never, seen in my entire life. So there's like a couple of things, right? Like the relational aspect of distribution, it is key and it will be key. But some of the people that are the best relational people are stuck spending most of their time in front of an ERP green screen. And
Exactly.
that is exciting to think that I'm going to unleash those people to do people things, and I'm going to employ my AI agents to do the non-human things. And this is where you can start scaling without adding headcount. This is where you can reorganize the seats on your bus to make sure that you have the right people spending more time in front of customers, delivering that value that automation and ordering automation, workflow just simply cannot provide. So that's very exciting. So I'd like to, as we kind of turn the corner here, talk about how we're going to manage change, because I think this is the key, right? Like you can talk all the game you want about all of these great digital projects, but at the end of the day, I always say like this is a change management issue, and it starts with the leadership team.
It does 100%. And when you talk to people and say it's a change management issue, how many people understand what you mean by change management, do you think?
I think they understand what I mean. At least they nod their heads and go, "Oh yeah, that's exactly right." But
Yeah, yeah.
we may be working under different definitions for sure. What do you
I
think?
yeah, I think so. I think that, and it's understandable. I mean, it's understandable because, change management takes, it's a long-term game, okay? So, it's not just about, okay, we're going to roll out a brand new process. And so, here's what we do. We communicate, we train, and then we're done. But that is what you see. And I get it because people are running fast, things are, but really being good at change management is the people side of change. And that is thinking through explaining to them, what is in it for them, right? Like, first of all, why are we doing this? What's the why behind it? And then what's in it for them, right? And then training them, once they get what's in it for them, training them, and then giving them a chance to safely practice it. Okay. Because a lot of times what happens is, we communicate, this is what we're doing, we train, and then, you're live, and so you don't have a lot of time and safe space to try it, to mess up, to learn how to do it. So, that they have to gain a competence in it, and then you have to continue to reinforce it. So, change management is ongoing, and you've got to think about every step of that. And a lot of times, I think what happens is the change management plan is designed by the person who understands the change that is being initiated. And that is only the beginning. Really, those people who are going to be at the end of all that change need to be involved in designing what the change management looks like, right? Do
Mm.
they understand? How much time do they think they need? Change is what we do. I don't think people dislike change. I think they dislike change that's imposed upon them. How can they have some control? So I think as part of this change management process, it's giving those people some sort of say or control around how they're going to, be a part of this and help execute it.
I love that. That's so good. I just feel like as somebody who's implemented technology for many years, like this should be a master class. Like we need to break that out and create an entire class for leadership teams, because it's not, you're absolutely right. It is about selling it first, convincing, right? Like having that mentality that this is not going to work without you being all in, right? And that is so important. And then resolving to make sure that the people that are utilizing the tools and are updating the processes are involved all the way through, and that there are off ramps for them to come back and provide that feedback so that you can make it better, and so that
Yes.
there's this continual loop of improvement, and that only comes if people trust you, right? It only comes if they trust that, their leadership team is trying to achieve the vision that they set out to achieve, and that they want you to have the best experience as, one of those team members who are making that mission possible. So I just think that, we have to think differently about change management and digital transformation. This isn't something that you just implement and check the box and you say, now I've done it, right? Trained everybody, it's live, our customers are aware of it, go, right? No,
Well,
it is piece by piece, and it takes intentionality.
I love the way you say that. And it's a meta skill. It becomes a meta skill that is part of the culture. And I think it's so necessary because gone are the days when you might have a new CRM that you're trained on every 10 years. That is not going to be the case. It's going to be continuous improvement. The technology is going to continue. You're not going to want to be the one who's not using it, right? You want to take advantage of it. So this whole change management needs to become just part of your culture and how you work moving forward, because at the end of the day, I think, it's really difficult when you're creating strategy to try to know what is really coming next. If you think you do know, you're really making stuff up. Instead, what I focus on is how do we create a company that has the right capabilities, the right agility, and the adaptability to be able to capitalize on whatever the environment does present. And one of the just backbones of that is a strong change management culture.
So good. Well, guys, we're going to wrap this up. We could just keep going, and there really is no end to this, because there, like, to your last point, this is a continual improvement culture that we're looking to create in our businesses, and this is the way of the future. When technology is moving as fast as it is right now, like, we better be sure that we have a game plan for when the next thing comes out.
I
And
think I agree, and I am most optimistic about it. I will say we've talked about the challenges, but I want to highlight the opportunities because I think there's never been a better time for small to mid-sized distributors to really take an opportunity and jump ahead and leverage it, and in the end, have a better experience for their customers and their employees as well.
exactly. Okay. Well, we learned so much. That there was, some roadmaps, I think, and even potentially some masterclass opportunities we have here. I can't wait to see the stuff that you continue to put out. I heard a couple
Awesome.
core messages as we just wrap up. Number one is that this most definitely is a tipping point, right? There's never been a convergence of technology, private equity pressure, buyer expectations, like the fast follower, like, I'll hang back and wait to see what happens. That's kind of gone. That was one of my big takeaways. Like, the wait and see mentality has really become, wait and die.
Mm.
Hello, let's do something. So, and then I heard, strategy, right? If it doesn't work for the branch manager or the warehouse employee, like, it just doesn't work. We've got to involve everybody. It takes a village to make this work, takes intentional change management and culture, right? To drive the innovation that we have the opportunity to see happen. It's right at our fingertips. It's the most exciting day to be alive. It just doesn't get any better, guys. So, Adriana, where can listeners go to learn more about your work at Fulfilling Strategy, and what resources do you have? I know you've been working on a few things. Tell us about some of those resources and where they can go to get a hold of you.
Yeah, so just real quick, you can find me at fulfillingstrategy.com. a lot of different resources and things like that. But I'd also, specific to this conversation, I'd share with you, Matt, my strategic AI risk and opportunity assessment. It's a great tool for you to sit down with your leadership team and just kind of collectively go through an exercise that kind of walks through a lot of what we talked about today. So I've given that link to you, Matt, so you can
Yep.
share that with whoever. And like I said, I'm very, very excited about the time now and really just, helping create future ready distribution businesses. It's what I love. And I think now is just an amazing time. So thank you for having me here.
Love it. I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you so much for those resources. I will be linking to them in the show notes. Also, we'll be sharing this on LinkedIn, so be sure to like it there and share with your network. Share this with somebody else who's going through some of these challenges, right? You're talking through navigating change, navigating all of this technology, thinking about prioritization. This really is the heart of what it means to be a leader in distribution. It means pulling the team together and thinking about the long term vision, but getting super tactical about what's right in front of us. The opportunities are limitless. I'm Matt Johnson with Pivot Tree. If you're ready to grow, let's go.